in due time. It's an English expression, apparently. For writers, it's actually a lifestyle. All in due time, I will start chapter 1 right after I have finished eating this entire bag of veggie chips, which I have told myself are more healthy than potato chips, which kind of doesn't matter because I've already eaten half a bag of white chocolate chips, and I don't even like white chocolate chips. All in due time, I will start this next paragraph right after I order 2 lapel pins and several decks of cards from a website called effingBirds.com. And I will answer my editor's email as soon as I inspect the baseboards for possible repair. I will practice making a Manhattan, even though it's 10 a.m. and I'm going to hate bake some biscotti. All in due time. So while writing is something that lends itself to this kind of procrastination, reporting can't and doesn't really work that way. I've been a reporter my entire adult life, and while I take time and procrastinate to write things, I don't do that with sources. I relish talking to people. I rush to it. I just don't procrastinate when it comes time to bother people. I just don't. The more I think I might annoy you, the more animated sometimes I feel to reach out to you. And sometimes, you might enjoy me bothering you, and then we become friends, but we don't know each other, so it doesn't matter. But reporting for newspapers, which has become kind of a bit glorified these days, is really just upscale gossip. And to be honest, sometimes it can kind of resemble stalking, which I'm okay with that, and I feel like you should be too. So for my book, The First, I spent a year chasing around all the women who won congressional seats in 2018. I followed them all around here in Washington at Capitol Hill and often back in their home districts. I would, for example, stake out Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in this hallway that went from her office in the Cannon House office building over to the house where she would go to vote. And so I would hang out there about 4 o'clock when they would vote every day, and she would walk by, usually carrying this cranberry muffin, and I would stand in this hallway under this TV there. There's kind of a metal detector with police there, and I would wait for her, and she would come, and she would know I was going to be there, and she would kind of pretend to be happy to see me, and we would walk to the House floor, and we would talk about the new Green Deal or rent the runway or something. There's another woman, Alyssa Slotkin from Michigan. She's a CIA analyst formerly, so she knows how to get away from me. She likes to walk down this certain hill back from the Capitol after she votes back to her office. Alyssa Slotkin has this way of kind of staring right past me as she tells me what she thinks about things, national security issues and so forth. And then she lets me know that we're done talking because she just walks away. So it's not precisely conversation. But I went one time to see her in her district in East Lansing, which just coincidentally happens to be where I was born. It's kind of, East Lansing is one of those places, if you live in Washington or New York or LA, you go there and then you kind of fantasize while you're there about living there, and you think about how far your home dollar would stretch if you were living there. And then you don't move there at all, and you stay precisely where you are, and you don't think about that place again. But when you're there, it's exciting. And it was incredibly great to see her because she was very sweet and sort of hilarious. And she kind of reminded me that people are very different outside of their workplaces. So if you would like to write a book about women in Congress, you need to go home with them a lot. I would do that a lot. I went with Katie Porter, Southern California, and I would kind of stand around and watch her, and she would take photos of pictures of her with university flags and Nehru's baskets and things like that, because that's kind of fun. So basically, I would follow these women around all day, asking them questions and kind of trying to ingratiate myself with them, which is hard to do when someone wants you to go away. But, it was fine. So at some point, I got very obsessed with tracking down Lucy McBath. Lucy McBath is a freshman House member. She's in my book, a woman from the suburbs of Atlanta, and she basically ran on gun control. And there was a day when the House was set to vote on this big piece of gun control legislation, which was really her bill. It was really kind of attached to her, and she to it. And I got obsessed with following her from this hearing that she was at as she made her long way to the House floor to vote on this bill. And so she was at this subcommittee hearing on labor and education, which is exactly what it sounds. And I planted myself in a hallway between 2 doors that I thought she might come out of, either one. And I was kind of flicking my head back and forth like a night watchman or like a barn owl. And finally she came out, And I waited for her to emerge. And when she came, she was greeted by this aide, and they were talking on their cell phones, and she just tried to ignore me. So I followed her. I ran behind her. I cantered. She can move. And so the journey from the house floor is pretty long, and it begins in an elevator that's for members only. They take that to go to their votes. It ferries them to this underground tunnel where they can get this little subway that takes them to the house floor. So I was so obsessed with this. So I broke the rules and I quietly stepped on this packed elevator to join her. And it was largely full of freshmen getting ready to go vote, and they don't know me. They didn't recognize me. But there was a guy named Billy Long. He is a 6-term Republican congressman from Missouri who you probably have not heard of because he has not sponsored any major legislation ever. However, he was, before his time in Congress, he was an auctioneer, and he's very known for that. And he uses those skills sometimes in Congress. I'll give you a little sense of that from time that he was overseeing a hearing and a protester was interrupting, and he wanted to stop her from protesting, so he implemented his auctioneering skills.
What'd she say? I can't understand. What? What's she? Having it in, 12.5, 15, $7.5, $20, $2.5, 5, 7.5, 30. Get $30 down here, 2.5, 5, 35, 7.5, 40. Get $40, 2.5, 5, 45, 7.5.
So that's Billy Long. So he saw me in the elevator and he was glaring at me very icily. He said, "There's people who are not members on this elevator." And he got off, and I kind of pretended that I was invisible, because I felt if I pretended I was invisible, I would be invisible. And I saw Ayanna Pressley over there, and she was raising her eyebrow in disgust, and I just left, and I followed her, and then we got to this other elevator, and she thanked all her colleagues for supporting her legislation, and then she went to vote. She walked on the House floor, and she settled into this seat, and there was this big sea of melon scarves, because people wear scarves to kind of in colors to represent the issue of the day, and that was gun control. She sat down next to Johanna Hayes, who was another freshman. So I felt it was kind of worth it. The episode didn't reveal that much about her or anyone. I mean, maybe it did about me. I don't know. But I put it in the book, So in due time, I will be able, I guess, to go out in the world and go to Barnes & Noble like a normal writer, and I'll see a room full of cranky Gristedes shoppers who realized there was a reading at the Barnes & Noble and it was raining, so they went there to take cover, and I'll tell my story in person. And I think in due time, obviously, all of us are going to do this normal stuff again, where we will stop sort of sexually idealizing epidemiologists. We will stop waking up in the middle of the night and reading posts from Science magazine. We'll admit to each other that sourdough bread's kind of not even that good, and it's sort of boring to make that foaming coffee drink. We will wear pants with zippers. We'll wear pants. We'll wear mascara and bras on Zoom calls, or we won't do Zoom calls, and we'll stop making conversation with our Shih Tzu. In due time, I plan to walk along the C&O Canal right here in Washington, where I live, with a friend right next to me. And I expect that we will look down and we'll see the remnants of some discarded mask that was fashioned from men's underwear stuck under a rock near the canal somewhere. And we're going to remember the season of lost things, when time kind of stood still. And I'm sure someone's going to write a wonderful book about it. But it's not going to be me, because I'm going to need to clean the lint from my dryer filter. Thank you.